And I'm walking down the street one night, and there's this hippie, long red hair. He was sitting on a pile of garbage. There was a garbage strike in Vancouver at the time, and the light hit him, and he looked angelic. It looked like something out of a Dickens movie. You know, he had an overcoat on and long hair, and I asked him what his name was, and he said, "Strawberry, man." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, my name's Strawberry." When I went into prison, you know, and then don't forget I'm a celebrity, you know, and going into a prison, you know, it's like going home with my fans. It's like going to jail with all my fans.
You took it in stride that you were going to prison. I mean, you knew it was
another experience.
Another experience. There you go. Wow, that's the way to look at it.
That's what it was. Yeah, I crack up because, you know, I'm a creature of karma, you know. When things happen, I don't get upset.
Hello, everyone. I'm Larry Weeks. Welcome to another episode of the Bounce Podcast. You know, I interview people for this show, for the most part, to get their perspective as it relates to challenge, whether that's personal or professional. Sometimes it's corporate. And more often than not, the episodes refer to some documented touchstone for our talking points, like a book or research. It's a catalog of lessons that we talk about, which is great. But this one is a bit of an exception. The lessons here are in the personal story. This episode is not didactic, if you will. This is pure experience and very entertaining at that. My guest is Tommy Chong. And those of you not familiar with the iconic comedy duo of Cheech and Chong, well, what can I say? You're missing out. But for the background, Tommy Chong is a Grammy Award-winning comedian and is legendary for his invaluable contribution to American counterculture as part of the iconic comedy duo Cheech and Chong. During their stints and their reign, the twosome recorded 6 gold comedy albums, including the 73 Grammy winner Los Cachinos, and they starred in 8 films, most of which Chong co-wrote. The first, Up in Smoke, was the highest-grossing comedy of 1978, topping $100 million at the box office. The others were Cheech and Chong's next movie, Nice Dreams, Things Are Tough All Over, Cheech and Chong Still Smoking, and The Corsican Brothers. Throughout the 70s, Cheech and Chong earned a massive following until eventually they broke up and then embarked on solo careers. Tommy has appeared in several films, including the 1990s Far Out Man, National Lampoon's Senior Trip. Tommy also starred most notably as Leo on Fox's That 70s Show, for those of you who watch that popular show, and has guest starred on ABC's Dharma and Greg and The George Lopez Show. He was also on Dancing with the Stars. Tommy is also an author. His titles include the New York Times bestseller, The I, Chong, Meditations from the Joint, which chronicled his arrest and his 9 months in prison for shipping bongs across the country, and most recently, the book about Cheech and Chong, the unauthorized autobiography. Tommy also reunited with Cheech, Richard Marin, in 2009 for the Cheech and Chong Light Up America and Canada tour. It turned out to be one of the most successful comedy tours of the year, selling out multiple shows from coast to coast. My interest in having Tommy as a guest was when I came across his story on him dealing with cancer. And then I didn't know this, but I found out that he went to prison for 9 months, and that became a rabbit hole, caught my attention. And then specifically, I started watching this documentary, which I recommend to you, AKA Tommy Chong, which featured that particular journey that Tommy took after the fully armed SWAT team just raided his home, and then leading up to his sentencing in a federal prison. The charge was, I think, conspiracy to manufacture and distribute drug paraphernalia, which was called Chong Glass. It was a family business specializing in handmade glass water pipes. There was a piece in the documentary before he went to prison. Somebody was following him around with a camera and talking to him, and his demeanor, it wasn't one of panic, or he wasn't angry, and it was incredibly unfair, this whole, the charge and leading up to it, and he got caught up in the political environment of the day. So he has this prison sentence and he's preparing for it, and the equanimity that he exhibited in this documentary, I was like, well, how is this guy so calm? Where does that come from? So that's what struck me. I reached out to him. I wanted to know who he was. I wanted more of his story. Just curious, would he be willing to come on the show, talk about it? And to my surprise, he did. So this interview was incredibly fun. So without further ado, here's Tommy Chong. Look at those guitars. Very cool.
This is my third collection of guitars.
Tommy, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was blown away in my research. There's so much to you that I did not know. You started in rock and roll, right? Or rhythm and blues?
Yeah, well, rock and roll first, well, country first for house parties. I played backup guitar since I was about 8, 9 years old. And I had a neighbor, he was a fiddle player, very good fiddle player, one of these jack of all trades. I had a background in playing backup guitar. And then I met a full-blood Native Army cadet. And so I was his backup. He was an Elvis impersonator when Elvis first hit the scene. As soon as Elvis came on the scene, then he started being an Elvis impersonator. And he looked Native. He didn't look any Elvis at all. But he combed his hair, put his collar up, and wiggled around, and the girls screamed. And that was my first venture on stage. And I've never gotten over it.
That is cool. First of all, I hope everybody's well in your family.
We got some friends, but everybody else all the family's good.
That's kind of a par for the course for me asking that of everybody now that I talk to. It's just a sign of the times here. Tell me, I'm trying to prepare, and I thought, okay, this is going to be direct. I certainly want to touch on a couple of things here. But so I've got these bullet points, Tommy. It's rock and roll, comedy, movies, drugs, prison, cancer, and business.
That's my life story.
I was thinking sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's like, oh, no. Tommy's got 5 or 6 of these things here that we can hit on. So there's some people asking me who's going to be on the podcast next. And when I say Tommy Chong, I said, you remember Cheech and Chong, Tommy Chong's coming on it. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, you got to let me know right when it comes out. Because nobody said this about any other guest. They're like, I got to get on it right away, man. I want to hear. So I'm going through your bio. So correct me, but I just want to hit some of the high points. You started kind of in music, and then you formed a rhythm and blues band when you were 18 or so, something like that, at least what I read. Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers.
That came later. That came much later.
Oh, did it come later? Oh, okay.
Oh, much later, yeah.
But you're a part of Motown.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got discovered. Well, thanks to Bobby. We've been struggling, with the singers that we had. The football player I started off with, his name is Tommy Milton. He was born in Canada, but, his ancestors came from Texas. And, during when they freed the slaves, they moved up to Edmonton. They were moving to Edmonton, Alberta, but when they got there, the city fathers wouldn't let them settle in the city. And so they put them out in a place called Amber Valley, north of Edmonton. And so, they were sharecroppers, they're farmers and ranchers. And so the first singer that I hooked up with he was a football star. And, that was the amazing thing about Canada, because Canada really was the Biloxi, Mississippi of the North, especially Edmonton, Calgary, especially those two places, because first of all, they're a cowboy country, and we're surrounded by native reservations. So you had that white man philosophy, scorched earth philosophy, and everybody of color was considered less than, a citizen. And because I was half Chinese, I grew up sort of on the cusp. I didn't look Chinese, so I didn't get that headache. But being half Chinese and being brown, that meant a fight in every school that we went to, because the bullies would always try to pick on the weirdos, But it was the music that sort of put a halt to all the racism. Because once you're on stage and you're playing music, people really don't care what color you are. It's the music.
Yeah, you were in an all black band, right? Rhythm and blues. Yeah.
Not in the beginning. In the beginning, It was a mixed band. We called ourselves the Shades because we're all different colors.
I like that.
That's why we called the Shades. So we had a black singer and a full-blood native singer and myself. And so we were rare, medium, and well done. that was our calling card.
And then '69, the world exploded because you teamed up with Cheech Marin, and you guys formed this iconic counterculture comedy team of Cheech and Chong.
That was formed again. Yeah, I crack up because I'm a creature of karma. Like when things happen, I don't get upset. I always look at the brighter side. It's that old, when one door shuts, another door opens. Instead of regretting, I've always looked ahead. I think a lot of it was the way I was raised. See, I was separated from my mother. I guess I was about 2, maybe 3, when my mother got tuberculosis, and she was quarantined. You talk about quarantine, that's serious time. I mean, you're not even allowed to go to the hospital. She would wave to us from the second or third story hospital room, just wave. And that's all I ever seen of her. So I was taken from my mother when I was about 3, I guess 3. And then I ended up in the hospital myself with pleurisy. And so then I was a year behind in school. And then when I got out, all the kids, my dad had just came from the Second World War, and he had some issues, from the war. And so he was also incapable of taking care of us. And so we all ended up in the Salvation Army home, which is like an orphanage. And even though we were only there I was there about a year, and my brother was there longer, it was that home experience, orphanage experience, So on top of being black or being brown, we were also home kids. And so that was another layer of fighting that my brother had to do.
But how did that not harden you versus it gave you this resilience that got you through your it's still with you?
When you're poor, there's no entertainment other than the church. The church was the only place that we were welcome, literally, without money. You go to church. In fact, they wanted you in church. So I started going to Sunday school when I was older, 5, 6, 7, around there, about 7, I guess. And the teachings, because the Sunday school, it was all the good stories. And it really took. I was that impressionable guy. I never had any parents to teach me this, but I had the Sunday school teacher teaching me. If you do this, this will happen. And one of the first things I learned was how to pray. And so, being a young guy and being a loner. See, I was, because I was in the hospital and in the home, and that I really went inside myself. So I never had, mentors. I never had teachers. I had to learn everything myself. And so when they taught me about prayer, you need something, you ask God.
Here's a story, Tommy Chong in Sunday school. That's a breaking news.
Listen, not only Sunday school. Anyway, I prayed. I got my dad a good job, got the family back together, got us a little house.
So it put something inside of you that was transcendent or made you contemplate, reflect on life in a positive sense.
To control life. The trick about praying is you pray. What I wrote in my book, is that the best prayer is to pray for wisdom. That is the all-time best. And so as I grew up, these prayers kept coming. Like my brother, we had an idyllic life, my brother and I and my sister, but mostly my brother and I, because we were country. We were like Tom Sawyer. We were in the summertime. We never had to put on shoes. We couldn't afford them anyway, but we went barefoot in the summer, all summer. Clothes, we were careful we didn't get them too dirty, because we had to wear the same thing every day, you know.
I want to touch on that again because I want to talk about your time in prison and leading up to that, because there's some things that struck me as to your demeanor during that time. I saw that documentary, aka Tommy Chong. So I want to ask about that because I was really struck by it. But before that, I just kind of going through the list here. So you guys recorded 9 comedy albums and you did like 8 films. You were the director. I didn't know that for some of those films. And I had no idea that Up in Smoke grossed, this is 1978, grossed over 100 million.
Well, for a while there, it kept the drive-in movie theater business alive because people played Up in Smoke for years, every weekend, midnight showings. And the drive-in people, we met them one time and they said, "Hey, I got a new car. We got a new house thanks to you guys." Yeah.
How cool is that? And then you acted 25, I counted them, 25 movies, or some role or another, and a combination of movies and TV shows. And then let me just touch on drugs real quickly, because obviously a lot of the act, and then you had a whole movie, Up in Smoke, was around, pot, marijuana, what have you. In the documentary, because you had this act, by the way, this act that you and Cheech Marin performed, for the people who don't know you out there, just the rare few, you guys were this hippie, ne'er-do-wells and just having fun and, smoking weed, the whole 9 yards. And for the time, a lot of this was controversial just generally in society outside of, the counterculture. And this reporter, this was, I don't know, it's either late 60s or early 70s, asked you, and it's on this documentary, something about, hey, do you feel that you're doing a disservice to the youth out there promoting drugs, or some form of question like that? And you said something I thought was very interesting. You said, only if you think drugs are bad. You said, we take the position, not only are they not bad, but some drugs are good for you. Now, you must seem prescient at this point, right? Because culture and society is kind of, to some degree, catching up. So we have psychedelics and cannabis that are winning big across the country on election night, right? You've got measures to legalize cannabis or decriminalize other drugs in Arizona, New Jersey, South Dakota, Montana, Mississippi, have legalized some form of marijuana. And then I think Oregon and Washington even legalized the therapeutic use of magic mushrooms or psilocybin. Yeah. So you must feel, Tommy, like, hey, welcome everybody. Where you been? So what came first, the act or the drugs?
What it was we were actors.
You had like a Second City group or something, right?
That's
had
right.
An improv.
That's right.
Yeah.
When I was with Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers on tour, I didn't need to go to blues clubs. There's the whole, when you play blues all night, the last thing you want to do is go, here's some more blues, And so I started going to Second City. I started going to Committee. And that was my entertainment, especially the Committee, because I had discovered the Committee. I was walking down Broadway. We were playing at Big Al's one night a week. And I was walking down Broadway and I saw the Committee and what is this? And so I went in, paid my money and went in, and it changed my life. They were doing sitcoms, kind of sitcom-ish kind of acting, but it was something I'd never seen before. I'd never seen improvisational acting before. I fell in love. And being a musician, I could remember all the bits. And so then when I changed our club, we had a nightclub up in Vancouver. It was the first strip club in Vancouver. And it was making a ton of money and everything, but it wasn't healthy. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot of perverts, a lot of alcoholics, a lot of drunks, a lot of sleazy stuff going on.
And this was your club?
Yeah, it was my club. My brother ran all the clubs. I was off playing music and he was running the clubs. So I went back when I got fired from Motown. I went back and I started working in the strip club. Because the after hours club, there's nothing for me to do. But in the strip club, I could work the lights and watch the show. And so that's when I come up with this idea of doing an improvisational strip club, and turn the strippers into actresses. And then I had the MC for one night. I had him working uh, being like one of the actors. I was just going to direct, but then the MC quit because it was too much work. Because all he wanted to do was, hey, here comes Lily, here comes Sandra, give her a nice round of applause. And next thing you know, he's working, he's acting, he's doing. And so he quit. And so I asked the doorman, who was a very funny guy, Dave. I said, do you want to do the MC? And he said, I'll do it if you do it. And so I said, oh, okay. And so next thing you know, I'm in the middle of it. And it changed my life. I loved it to this day. What I learned, I was a natural. And anyway, I had two nightclubs. And I'm walking down the street one night, and there's this hippie, long red hair. He was sitting on a pile of garbage. There was a garbage strike in Vancouver at the time. And the light hit him, and he looked angelic. It looked like something out of a Dickens movie. He had an overcoat on and long hair. And I asked him what his name was. And he said, Strawberry, man. and, and I said, what? He said, yeah, my name's Strawberry. And he goes, hey, man, do you have a place where I could stay? And I said, well, yeah, actually, I do. He said, where? I said, it's a nightclub. I said, you can sleep in the light booth, and it's got a bathroom and it's warm. And it's actually got a kitchen and everything. And so he said, oh, thanks, man. And so he ended up living in the light booth.
Just like that. You saw something in him instantly.
Oh, totally. I mean, everything about him. And so I really took his persona. And we even called a few of our bits Strawberry.
So you were doing Strawberry this whole time?
Yeah, that's him. And I met him again a few years ago. Changed totally. That Strawberry guy was just when he was that age. Changed totally. Short hair, businessman suit, tie. Totally. That guy had never, it was somebody else.
Did you tell him, I used you?
Oh, he knew. Oh, no, he knew. Oh, he knew. Everybody knew. Everybody in Vancouver knew. Well, I used, like in Up in Smoke, we used for Detective Sergeant Stadenko, played by Stacy Keach. Stadenko was a real cop. He was a real narc in Vancouver.
Okay.
I made him so famous because he tried to bust us in the clubs. We, every once in a while we'd go out for a smoke, a little get high, and the cops would be trying to bust us, in intermission time because he knew, cops in Vancouver didn't have a lot to do, so they would stake us out, try to bust us, and so we used his real name.
So we touched on the legalization of drugs and psychedelics and their use. How much of the act was that for you versus personal? Was it just recreational? I'm just curious in the sense of you were advocating for it, I think, not only in your act, because it was fun and funny and what have you, but you were promoting to some degree, hey, this is not bad.
Oh, no. What I found, it opened so many doors for me. Pot opened the music door for me. Up until the pot, I was doing everything right. I didn't know it. I was hanging with the right people. I was listening to the right music. I was learning the right tunes. When you grow up on a farm, you become a jack of all trades. You have to do everything. There's no one there to call. And so I've always had this thing where you get a job to do, you learn how to do the job, and then you do the job, and then you find another job. I never settled on one thing. Like directing a movie, for instance. I basically directed Up in Smoke, most of it. I wrote it for sure. And the director and Cheech too, they like to say, that we never had a script when we did Up in Smoke. Well, you can't shoot a movie without a script, dude. You need a script. It may be written on a napkin.
Yeah, you got to have scene 1, scene 2.
That's
we're going
right.
Yeah.
You got to have it. And so I just did like the farms thing. I just did what I had to do. Okay, we need, first of all, Up in Smoke wasn't the movie that we started making. What happened? We were touring all over the place with our live act, and we ended up being popular in Australia. Now the only problem is that we would go to Australia when they had their winter, and then we would play to Australia. Then we would come back to America when we were having our winter here, and so we were robbed of summer for 4 years, 4 years. And so when the fourth tour came up, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to miss summer anymore. My life was slipping away, To me, summer is very important. I'm a Canadian, And so summer, that's what you look forward to. You put up with the hell of the 9 months of winter for summer, and then to have it taken away. So I started writing a movie with another writer, and I wrote a movie called Jack and the Weed Stalk, and it was about the giant weed stalk grows, and we meet the giant and everything. But Lou Adler was our record producer at the time, and when he found out I wanted to do a movie, he started making inquiries of the movie industry, and so then Lou, because he owned all the records, he wanted us to do the movie. He wanted the movie to be Cheech and Chong's greatest hits. And so we take characters from our records. But then when Cheech and I got together, as we always did with the records, with everything, we changed it around to what we think it should be. So then Cheech and I decided we were going to use those two characters, the rich stoner white kid, or and the Chicano lowrider. Then, being a songwriter, I said, I got to write a song for this. So I wrote Up in Smoke. And when I played it for Cheech and Lou, Cheech says, there, that's the title of the movie, Up in Smoke. And that's the title song. I said, great.
So you are actually touting the benefits of being a generalist versus a specialist. There's actually, somebody's written a book on this phenomenon where the benefits of being a generalist keeps you open to other opportunities. It also keeps you relevant because things change all the time, especially now in the digital age. Things change so fast that you've got to be flexible and able to. If you're a specialist and just have a very narrow domain of expertise, there's a risk of being stuck or becoming irrelevant depending on what changes in that domain. So you're basically living proof of the benefits of being a generalist, a kind of a tradesman. So I want to get to Prison. This is around 2003, right? Or so.
It was 2003, yeah.
2003. Now, I was really struck by your whole demeanor. And again, I'm referring to somebody who's documenting, on film, your life prior to and right up into and going into prison in that documentary. Again, I'm referring the audience to, it's called AKA Tommy Chong. And you have a comedy routine where you get up before you have to go to jail and say, I'd always thought I'd be busted for pot, but instead they charged you with the paraphernalia that people were using to smoke that. And I'm just going to push people to the documentary. I want to go into the story, but you were kind of set up. This was kind of, they were trying to use you as an example or make an example out of you, but you really didn't do anything wrong in a sense that it was just this paraphernalia. So I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that turned into a conviction. But I'm watching you, and this guy's got this camera in your face, and you're driving around. You had an equanimity, Tommy, about the whole thing. You didn't seem angry. You didn't seem depressed. Why were you so calm about it?
It was the way I was raised. Now, don't forget, I didn't see my mom and dad. I was taken, I got little memories of my mom a little bit. I know my dad when I was a child. I was incarcerated right early in my life. First in the hospital, then in the home, and so I'm used to incarceration.
Yeah, you had this. And forgive me for the phrasing this way, but early on you had the gift of adversity. You had been through some things that prepared you. Is that right?
Yep. And it was an experience that I wasn't dreading at all, especially prison. The weirdest thing about me, my whole life has been ordained somehow, because I get all these I get all these warnings and preparations for jail. For instance, I got a tattoo here on my arm. It's a white supremacy tattoo.
Why do you have a white supremacist tattoo?
Well, here's what happens. I started meeting people that were just getting out of jail, and they were in need. Like this one, the guy that gave me the white supremacy tattoo, he was an old biker from the 50s, from 40s, actually, from the 40s. He had tattoos on his fingers. He had tattoos all over his arms, tattooed himself, And so when he came to live at my house, he had nowhere to live. And so I was like, we got a room. We always used to rent out a room. We were near the school. And so in between sometimes, anyway, he ended up, Erwin McCann was his name. He looked like James Dean, kind of a real handsome guy. And he was built, nice, built from hard work, not from weights or anything.
He gave you the tattoo?
He gave me the tattoo. It was a homemade tattoo.
But you're not a white supremacist.
No, and he didn't really know what it was.
Oh, got it. It was just something he was familiar with. Got it.
Yeah, no, what it was the Hitler. It's a Hitler thing. It's what do you call it? The eagle, not a swastika, but it's an eagle with sitting perched.
Oh, got it.
With the stars around it.
Well, then you didn't know at the time either, I guess.
I had no clue. I didn't know until a few years ago. I was at a radio station down south, and an old biker said, "Hey, that's a white supremacy tattoo you got there, buddy." First time I knew about it.
He's like, "Put her there. Put her there." High five.
Yeah, almost.
So you because of the adversity or the things in your childhood, the experiences you had, it wasn't a big deal, or you just took it in stride that you were going to prison. I mean, you knew it was
another experience.
Another experience. There you go. Wow, that's the way to look at it.
That's what it was. Because I found out the one thing that I really had a passion for was literature. I loved reading, and I can write. I'm a writer. I can write. I can write poetry. I can write stories. I've written a book. I've written.
So this was going to feed all that, right, or give you the opportunity.
So when I went into prison, and then don't forget I'm a celebrity, and going into a prison, it's like going home with my fans. It's like going to jail with all my fans.
See, it's all perspective, Tommy, right? It's all how you look at it.
When I got there, I was given a hero's welcome. Jimmy, the first guy, opened the door, went the gate to the camp. He met me. He said, "Come on, I'll get you set up." And we went, and he got me, we had to wear Dickies in prison. He got me some OG Dickies that they don't make anymore. That if you got them, that means that you've been there for a while. You're an OG, And so he fixed me up straight, introduced me to everybody that I needed to be introduced to, and then I was in. It was like going home, and there were so many really intelligent, cool people. The most intelligent people are the prisoners. I mean, you got senators, you got lawyers. There's at least I don't know how many lawyers in there. And they had 7. I counted them. 7 doctors, 7 MDs, doctors, lawyers.
What's the biggest lesson, if anything, in prison you got out of it?
It was spiritual. It was all spiritual.
Wow. How about that?
It's all spiritual. What they say
you got nothing else to do. You go inward, right?
You got God. You got God. And a lot of this old buddy, my dog, the best friend, in prison, you call him your dog. I had a dog named Steve, and he had another white supremacy tattoo on his back.
I think that's a song, Tommy. A dog named Steve, man.
Yeah.
So you're telling me this was a good experience for you?
Incredible. It was an incredible experience. Incredible. I mean, where else do you get to hang with the Hells Angels, with the Mongols every day? And then go talk with a Nixon or a Reagan speechwriter at lunchtime, or go visit with a golf caddy, all in one place. all in one place. And then end up with Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, as my cellmate or cellie. I mean, this was incredible. And what happened when I was there, they started getting overflow visiting visitors because they wanted to come and hang with Tommy Chong. And so the warden and the prisoners, they had to come up to me. First of all, I was allowed to take pictures with everybody, And then all of a sudden they come up with this rule. I wasn't allowed to take pictures with anybody in the visiting room because people were coming.
They just couldn't take the crowd. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, the crowd. It just created a lot of problems for the prison.
Yeah. Now you have cred, right?
Big time with everybody. And it worked. The thing is, and like I say, I started exploring the religion. I was always interested in spiritual work since my.
So what do you believe? So what is your religion or belief?
Well, it's what I learned is that the Bible was written by writers, and writers with imagination. And what they did, they took stories that were going around and then they embellished them. And back in the day, there is black magic, and it touches on that. But what I did, I started. First of all, I asked for wisdom. That's my prayer. I just got off a Zoom with a girl. She asked me a secret, and I told her, prayer works, but the best prayer is pray for wisdom. That's all you need in this life, because if you have wisdom, you have everything. And so that's where it got me right now. Look at me, I'm sitting in a nice palatial estate in the Palisades. So my belief is very basic. That first of all, we are eternal beings. We've always been here. That's what the Bible says. In the beginning, there was no beginning. It's just one circle. And there's no beginning and there's no end. Okay? But we are eternal beings. And there's everything comes in two. For every action, there's a reaction. You know that thing? So there's a spiritual world. And the opposite of the spiritual world is the physical world. And so when we die, we go back to the spiritual world. And we regroup, and it's like a casting call. We regroup, we decide what we need to learn in our next life, and then we go learn it. Or we go back and we have to take a course over again.
Well, that's what the Buddhists believe that, right? A lot of Buddhists believe that. Yeah,
that's exactly it. And it's so true. Yeah, and it never stops. It never stops. And the thing is, you evolve and you evolve upward. And we're only here to help each other.
We talked about rock and roll. We talked about comedy and entertainment. We talked about drugs. When did you get diagnosed? Is this 2012? When did you get diagnosed with cancer?
When I was in prison. By the way, when I was in prison, I never smoked weed once.
Well, they don't let you, right?
Well, I could have, but I could have. There was a ton of weed. I was offered weed every day. But I was also drug tested every day, because they're looking to bust me for something worse than what I was busted on.
So are you saying that kept the cancer, you think it kept it at bay until you stopped taking it?
That's right.
Wow. Where are you now?
Well, what happened? I felt it coming on. It's a prostate cancer. I felt at my age, that's a gimme almost. And so I got diagnosed when I got out of jail, the plumbing wasn't working right. I went and checked, found out I had prostate cancer. And the old thing they say, it's the prostate, it's slow moving, you'll die of something else before you die of that. That old BS.
Oh, well, they say most men, if they live long enough, they're going to get prostate cancer or some form. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I went on Dancing with the Stars. And I think it's the energy, the pure energy, which I shouldn't have been doing at my age. I ended up with rectal cancer. So I got a tumor on my rectum, which had to be operated. And so when they were operating and when they're dealing with that, they cleared out the prostate. They radiated the prostate. So I'm cancer free now.
Oh, well, God bless. I'm glad to hear that. I think I read, and this is, I think, widely known at this point, but the cannabis, the pot helped you through the chemotherapy. It helped you in recovery.
Well, more than anything, it stopped me from getting hooked on opioids. I had the operation, so I got Oxycontin. I was hooked up. I had a button I could press, and I was hitting that button so many times. It was just like.
So you're saying that helped you get off of that, or not maybe get addicted to it?
It got me away. I cold turkeyed all the opioids just for pot.
My gosh, Tommy, you've faced a lot of challenges, and the biggest one, in my opinion, is cancer for anybody. So at what point did you get into CBD?
Right after the operation, Christopher Robin, he's an ex-medic from the Army. He introduced me to CBD, and he started giving me injections. I would take injections in the thigh muscle of CBD, pure CBD.
And what did that do for you?
As far as I know, CBD calms the body, calms the mind. I believe the brain controls the body. And when the CBD hits the brain, we have receptors for marijuana. When it hits the receptors, it calms the body. The body gets calm to the point where it's almost in hibernation. And when your body's calm, everything can work in it. All the immune system kicks in, and that's what happens. You can't override these systems in your body. You do, you're going to get in a lot of trouble.
But you credit a lot of your recovery and health, I think, at least what I've read, to CBD, right? Or the use of CBD. Is that right?
Use of CBD, yeah. Yep.
So educate me on CBD. This is hemp.
It doesn't have the psychedelics. It just has the good juice, the good CBD juice in there. And what it does, it goes right to the brain. It goes right to the brain, and the brain calms everything else down.
Well, I got turned on to it by a guy named Tim Ferriss 3 years ago on some recommendation he made. It's a company called Charlotte's Web, and it helped me sleep like a baby. Plus, I play a lot of tennis. I'm very active, and it does help me take less of the painkillers and that kind of thing if I'm sore. It does help me. I've felt it. I use it to this day, right? In fact, I ordered some of your CBD. I'm going to try yours because I've tried a lot, and just telling the audience out there, you don't know the purity. It seems to be fairly expensive. I've tried a lot, and some of it didn't work at all. I didn't feel anything at all. But this one company I've kind of landed on so far I found it helpful. But I can't take it like during the day. It relaxes me so much. It's hard for me to function. But I ordered some of your stuff because there's some formulation I could take during the day.
Yeah, you can. There's it depends on the amount of CBD that you're doing. But again, you see, it works on the mind, and as your body gets used to it, it'll be less and less. Because of what happens, the body learns how to relax. It's like hypnosis. Because think about it, what keeps you awake? Your mind. It's your mind. That keeps you awake. You got some, kids out with a car at night and you can't sleep because he hasn't come home. That kind of sleep. But you do the CBDs. It's a little dangerous for me too because I have a colostomy bag, and if I don't take care of that sucker, if I sleep too soundly, I'll miss the call, and there'll be a little bit of a cleanup after. But no, it relaxes the brain. That's the whole point.
So let's dovetail into the business right now. You have a company. Are you just the face of it, or is this your enterprise that you're running?
No, I'm basically the face. This is I got my son and partner JP. He's a businessman. He's an old bank executive. They run the business. I just do the Zoom calls and actually tried the product, CBD products and that.
Are you guys the grower, the manufacturer, or just the distributor of curated or people that you've vetted that grow? Because is it both cannabis and CBD, or are they separate businesses?
No, separate products, but same business. Yeah, same business. Yeah, the CBD, you get CBD like from the hemp, and you also get CBDs from the THC plants too. There's a little bit of THC in everything too. There's like every CBD and everything too.
And prior to COVID, were you headed toward the dispensary route as well, having kind of retail operations in California?
We were playing with it. We are now. We're looking to raise, to get on the stock exchange and do Cheech and Chong dispensaries.
But that'll be separate than what you have now, right?
Totally,
That'll be a different.
Totally separate. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm circling right back. So you must be happy with what's happening in the country as to the use of psychedelics, or at least the the approval for the use of these type of drugs for therapeutics and what have you.
Well, what I'm really happy is that they replaced the dangerous drugs. That's what I'm really happy about. Like me, I've seen a lot of people that I met them that had prostate cancer, and then they're done. They're gone. They're gone. They weren't as lucky as me, And the thing is, it's all a learning experience. We're all learning about this, and to be able to be part of a movement, that's so positive. Because don't forget, like I say, it works on the brain. See, that's how I ended up being a director. I never went to film school. I never got through high school, and I've directed some of the most iconic movies out there. written them, started them, and directed them. It blows my mind. I've written songs.
We put ourselves in our own box, don't we? We limit ourselves, don't we, Tommy? We're afraid to experiment and maybe follow our noses.
Unless you live on a farm and you got no one around. There's no plumber. There's no one around. So it's up to you, dude. And so you got to learn how to do it. Ain't nothing to it but to do it.
So how old are you now?
82. Looking at 83 now. 83 is around the corner.
Go, man, go. So for all the young kids out there, or maybe not so young, you've lived many lives, Tommy. What would be the single message generally of getting through life and making it work? What words come to mind?
Positive thinking. You can't have two thoughts in your head at the same time. So whenever you get depressed or lonely or discouraged or fearful or whatever, change that thought. And what I learned from Emmett Fox, there's one word that says it all. And if you say that word over and over again in a positive manner, like mantra, just like when they meditate, you have your mantra, and that, to me, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work, and a lot of, you have to be in a quiet place, all that stuff. You don't have to do that. All you have, because we're not meant. Some people are meant to be able to do that, and a lot of people aren't. So the one word that comes to mind is the word God. If you substitute whatever bad thought you have with the word God, your life will change, because that word has power. It has the most power. Think about it. That's what the election right now with Trump. They're waiting for Biden to put his hand up in the air and swear by God that he will be a good leader. That's how powerful that word is. And if all you have to do is think it.
What would you have to say for those agnostic out there who not sure?
Same thing. You can say what you want, but what you're doing when you're saying you're agnostic, you're saying, basically you're saying, I don't know, but it's not what everybody else says it is. That's what they're saying. And they're true. And it's absolutely true. Think about this now. In this pandemic, churches don't want to close. Why? Because they're making money. But think about it. A church isn't supposed to be where you make money. A church is where you go communicate with God. And you don't have to go to a church. You don't have to be around a lot of people to communicate with God, because where you stand is holy ground.
I wish people could see you, because this whole interview, you're smiling, Tommy. You have this big smile and you're laughing, and you just seem incredibly happy. Listen, you have surprised me. You're a very deep spiritual person. You've been through a lot, but man, you threw down some wisdom today. So I thank you so much. Thank you for coming on and for being so open and sharing. This was a joy. This was a joy. Tommy, thank you so much, my friend.
Okay, my brother. Take care.
Well, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, do share it with your friends and on your social platforms. Big thanks to Sam Williams, my audio guy, and the beautiful bumper music you're hearing is Michael Petrovich's Bella Luna. For all my show notes or resource links, visit larryweeks.com, and we will talk again soon.